Do you know, there's so many different things you could be doing with AI. It can seem pretty overwhelming as a business owner or a CEO if you want to get started. In this episode, I'm going to share with you a really simple, practical mental model that you can use to really level up what you're doing. And I'm going to provide you with some practical examples from my own business about what that looks like. So let's get started. The very first thing I feel that you need to realize as a business owner when you're getting started with AI is to figure out what actual AI problem you're trying to solve. That's really important because if you don't know that, you're going to spend a lot of time trying a lot of different things without any real clear direction. And the best way that I've seen to do this, and I started to use in my business, is to frame it in terms of two different outcomes. The first outcome is about productivity, and I call that productivity AI. The second outcome is around opportunity, and I call that opportunity AI. Now, what does that mean? Well, productivity AI deals with the ability to do more with less. In practical terms, that either means that you're able to scale your business outcomes without scaling your human resources, or you're able to maintain the same level of output, but use less human resources as an input. Depending on your business and where you are in your business life cycle, both of those are completely valid options for you to pursue. But you need to be really clear that you're pursuing productivity as the goal. The second option, which is opportunity AI, is all about figuring out new ways to generate revenue and profit for your business. In practical terms, that either means you're able to take your existing products and services and monetize them in new ways, or you're able to generate entirely new products and services using AI in your business. Once again, your choice about which way you're going to go with this is entirely dependent on what you want to do with your business. But I hope that you can already see that there's a very distinct difference between choosing opportunity AI and productivity AI, and knowing which one of those you want to use and which one of those you are using and which one of those you are pursuing will make a huge difference in terms of how you start your AI journey. Let me give you a really practical example from my business. As many of you would know, I've set myself a big, hairy, audacious goal known as a BHAG to see if I could become the very first $1 billion solopreneur business on the planet. I want to see if it's possible to build a 1 billion solopreneur business using purely AI and automation to get there. Now, that sounds really cool, it's very exciting and it's very motivating, I get that. But one of the very first things I realized after I set that BHAG and really landed on it was that I would need to find a way to scale my productivity and my opportunity to get there. I only have the same amount of time per day as any other person on the planet. The very first thing I wanted to start with was actually improving my productivity before I could get to opportunity. And I did that by looking at my YouTube channel. Now, for those of you who don't create YouTube content, there's actually an exceptional amount of work that goes in behind the scenes for every episode that actually gets presented. There's a whole bunch of things and people and resources that go into it. There's research around what topics might be useful to people or what topics your audience might want to hear. Then you need to generate a script and then you record the video. That's the first stage. Once the video has been recorded, it then typically gets sent off to an editor. Now, for someone like myself who does multi-camera editing, that typically means downloading the films of each particular camera onto my computer and uploading it to something like Google Drive. Depending on the size of the edit, that could be a multi-gigabyte file, so there's some time to be spent there. Ultimately, when all of those files are downloaded and uploaded, I then send it to an editor. And that editor does their editing on the file and turns it into a well-presented video. When that person has finished doing that, or that team has finished doing that, they send it back to me, I review it, and depending on how long it takes us to get it right, we might go back and forth on that process several times. Prior to my productivity improvements, a lot of the times that would mean downloading the video so I could view it in its full resolution, watching it, making its edits and sending it back. Once the video has been edited, then it goes off to my social search optimization team. And their goal is to try and make sure that we hit all of the key keywords that are required to make the video popular. It also means going through and making sure that the description is accurate. If I mention that you can download a file, we want to make sure that the link is in there. There's also some standard links about how to engage my services if that's what you want to do. So there's a whole bunch of work that goes into that. Then we have to figure out what playlist it gets added to. When all of that is done, we then actually have to upload it to YouTube. Again, what that would typically mean is someone in the team, normally myself, would download it to a computer, upload it again to YouTube, and then go through and basically get all the information from the title, the description, the playlists, what time we want to schedule for, all of that information onto YouTube and make it happen. Now, back when I had a team of people working for me, and at one point in time, a few months ago, I had up to 12 people working for me, that was totally fine. You could kind of fit all of those little bits and pieces in there, and it wasn't a big hassle for anyone. But now that I'm a solopreneur, I needed to think about doing things differently. So I sat down and I figured out how long that whole process took end to end for an average video. And I figured out that for every video that went online, there was at least 10 hours of work that went in behind the scenes to make it happen. Given that my target is to build this entire solopreneur business in public, I wanted to make sure I could produce 3 videos per week. Based on my 10 hours per video timeline, that was functionally unworkable. That meant I would literally be spending 30 hours per week making all of that happen. And that doesn't include things like the editing time, the time to actually record the videos, do the retakes, all of that sort of stuff. Completely unworkable. However, when I started to look at this from a productivity perspective, I realized that there was a vast amount of automations that could be made to make this process significantly more efficient. If you watch some of my other YouTube content, you can see me literally building this in public and demonstrating exactly how to do that. I'm not going to lie, some of the content is pretty technical and it's pretty niche, but the point is, I'm able to demonstrate that I can get that entire process down from 10 hours to 3 hours. That's a huge improvement. And that 3 hours isn't even really the right figure because a lot of the work, the downloading and the uploading, that sort of stuff, is all happening in the background, freeing me up to focus my attention on other areas. This means that in the average week, where it used to take me 30 hours to get all my editing done, all the rest of it done, it now only takes me 9. That allows me to create the content that I want to create at the scale that I want to create it without exhausting my resources. I didn't really change that much about my process other than automating it where possible. I still have the same outcomes, I still have the same inputs. I record video and it has to end up on YouTube. But the process in between those two things has been vastly shortened. I've made myself a more productive human in doing that. Opportunity AI is actually something totally different. An example of this is what I'm currently working on, and hopefully in the next couple of months I'll be recording, is how to actually create entirely new product lines using AI. One of the things I've been really fascinated with is the ability to take content that you have created and turn it into a chatbot that replicates your tone, facts, and information. Now, a lot of this is really technical, and we talk about vector store databases and those kind of things, but the idea is pretty simple. If people can have a chatbot that they use like ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, and it chats to just like generic content, I believe that there's an opportunity for me to create high quality, factually accurate information that people can only access by paying me money. Hopefully it's not a big fee for those of you who want to subscribe to it. And ultimately the goal here is that every time I create a YouTube video or write an article or any of that sort of stuff, it goes into a customized chatbot that people can only access by paying me a fee. Now, if my hypothesis works out, then that means I've actually created an entirely new product line for my business that didn't exist before the age of AI. And that is an opportunity AI play. It has very little to do with making myself a more productive human and everything to do with me being able to monetize what I'm doing in an entirely new way. Now, the good news about both of these things is that there's a lot of similarities between them. And again, in future episodes, I'll be showing you more about how to do that and talking you through it. But the key thing is, as a business owner, if you're just getting started in AI or you're kind of at the stage where you really want to invest into it, you really need to be aware of which one of those two things you want to choose. If you choose productivity AI, you really need to be prepared to get deep into your processes and understanding exactly what you're doing exactly what each step is, exactly what you need to do for that step, and then figuring out how to translate that for an AI. You can use fancy terms like robotic process automation and a couple of other ones, but the point here is that productivity AI is about making what you're doing faster, more efficient, more productive. Opportunity AI is actually completely different in terms of your mindset behind it. Opportunity AI is about identifying new ways to do different things with your business. In there, if you have a look at the thing that I talk about with creating my own customized chatbot that replicates my content, it's not really got too much to do with the process. I might have to build a new process to get that information. For instance, practically speaking, what I actually have to do is transcribe all of the videos automatically and then run them through a vectorizer to put them into a vector store database. I then need to connect my chatbot to that information and configure it in a way so it only uses my information to answer people's questions. So yes, I do have to figure out some processes, but my point is to try and generate a new product. What I find with businesses when I work with them is that if they're not clear about which one of these two things they're doing, they can often get lost. They spend all of this time experimenting, thinking about a product, only to realize that in actual fact, improving their productivity was their goal all along. Or they can go really deep down a productivity route, only to realize that they actually were looking for new opportunities to monetize their business in different ways. Now that you've heard this episode, that's not going to be you. So what are some really practical ways that you could go about figuring out which way you want to go and also how to get started? Well, here's a really simple five-step process that you can work through. The first thing is have a think about which one of the things you actually want to do. Do you want to improve the productivity of your business, or do you want to create new opportunities? There will come a time where you can experiment with both, but for your very first exercise, just have a go at figuring out which one you want. Once you've done that, the next thing you should do is list out some of the things you'd like to do. So if you want to do productivity, maybe go through your processes. For me, I just looked at the process that was the biggest time sink. I looked at my YouTube and I was like, I've got to get that time down. You might have some other things. You might want to look at your customer service roles and be like, oh, I'm sick and tired of us never being able to capture the information that we want the right way. That is a productivity thing that you can work on. If it's an opportunity thing, write down some ideas about new opportunities. Maybe it's a chatbot, maybe it's something else, but just write those things down. The next thing is just choose one of the things that you've written down and have a go at it. Honestly, this is probably the simplest and most important step that you could take. Choose one thing, have a go at it. No matter what you do, it's going to be a win for you. Yeah, you might not get to the outcome that you want, but you're definitely going to learn some stuff and it's going to give you a much clearer idea for the second thing. And that brings me to my fourth step. A fourth step is to record what you do. Now, this might look like some notes, or you might want to do a screen recording, or if you're delegating this to a team member, you might want to sit down and have a conversation with them at some point. But the thing is, you really need to capture what it is that you want to do. What you really want to end up with is on the first part, this is what I tried to do. On the second part, this is what happened. It's really simple. I tried this is what happened. If you want to get into technical terms, you just form a hypothesis and then look at the results. And that brings me to the fifth point, which is really reflecting on where to next. What I have found as I've gone through this is that the more times that you just go through this process of hypothesis, results, reflection, the more times you go through that, the better it becomes. When I first started doing my YouTube thing, I had no idea that I was going to be able to save that much time. For me though, even if I could get it down to half, that was still going to be a win. The fact that I could get it down to 3 hours, and you know what, in the future, I think I'm going to get it down to 2, it's just exceptional. That's really, really good. But the very first thing that I actually did was I figured out how to get the title and description and scheduling done automatically. That process alone just saved me 20 minutes per video. 20 minutes. For the rest of the time I do videos on YouTube, that process has been sorted. That's the first thing I did. Then I went to how do I automatically download and upload. Then I went through how can I do it on Notion. Then I went through the next thing. Then I went through the next thing. I didn't have this amazing grand plan right at the start. I just followed this process. What do I want to do? Productivity. Number 2, what's a list of things? Need to do YouTube. First thing I did there. What's the most important thing I can do on YouTube? What happened when I tried it? Oh, did it really work, but it was close. This is what I could do better next. Here's what I learned. Super simple. And I think that you can profit from it too. If you like this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, or share my channel with other people. And I'll see you on the next episode. See you there.